Hey YouTube, Eric Coffee here, talking to you today about my upcoming guest. I'm so excited to have him on the show. His name is Bobby Brown. His company is Broco Oil. He's a father, he's a husband, and he's also a first responder. That's right, he's a full-time firefighter and still manages to find time to build a first-class company, which was awarded in 2019 Veteran-Owned Business of the Year. On top of his regular job, he started off with $25,000 loan from the SBA, a $7,000 used truck, and he built it up into a 50-person company with now more than 35 trucks. Stay tuned for this upcoming episode with Bobby Brown, Broco Oil.
My name is Bob Brown. I own Broco Oil. I started that in 2007, shortly after my time with the Navy SeaBees.
Interesting. Now, and reading about the Navy SeaBees, why did you join Navy SeaBees?
It was a construction battalion workforce that did Navy Marine Corps construction projects.
Okay.
So prior to me going into the military, I was going to school, but I was also a mason on the side. So it was pretty natural for me to take a job in the military that, had a skill in the construction industry that I could, learn, sharpen my skills a little bit better, and really take that out to the civilian world after I served, which, it fulfilled all those needs.
And what made you join the military?
I was going to college up at UMass Lowell, kind of going through the motions.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't really meant to be a college student at all.
Sure.
But kind of what everybody was doing. So I gave it a shot. And when the towers came down that Tuesday, I was sitting in an English class doing my core classes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of when I was on the fence anyways. And I said, this is my time. It was my calling. My whole family's all veterans, and back to my grandfather in World War II, who were, Bronze Star, Battle of the Bulge. So it was pretty natural for me to take that course because I knew I wanted to be an emergency in the emergency response sector. So I ended up becoming a firefighter, just following right in my dad and my uncle's footsteps.
Okay. And then, so you go to the military, you come out, okay, and you become a firefighter.
Yep.
Is that okay? Now, I'm reading here. It looks like you married your high school sweetheart.
I did.
Okay. And then she's the one that pushed you to start the company. Is that how the story goes?
Well, it was the light bulb went off because she was working a construction job, and she grew up in the construction industry.
Right.
And the job that she was at wasn't paying as much as she thought it would after graduating from Suffolk University.
Right.
And she knew she wanted to work and create a good lifestyle, but she needed money to do so. And she had a great work ethic. I would say my wife works a lot harder than I do most of the time. She's behind the scenes. She's our CFO. So we grew this company together. When we first started, the light bulb went off, and I bought a used oil truck. And I said, okay, I will drive the oil truck and you will run the office. And, that was how we started Broco Oil.
Now, not to cut you off, but you bought a used oil truck. How did you pay for it?
We paid $7,000 with our money that we were able to scrap up, and we took out an SBA loan for $25,000, which really was everything we needed just to get this thing off the ground. We started as a COD company just to get in the game because the oil industry is usually heavy capital to get involved in. So we did something that was completely rogue for that industry and just kind of winged it. But I was working for a company selling and driving for them the winter before that. So it was one of those things where I was on the fire department, and with our shift, we work 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, and we have 5 days off. So a lot of us have a second job. Okay. I thought that'd be perfect. I'll fill in, 4 months out of the year driving an oil truck. I'll take my summers off, and I'll just continue to do the fire department. And never did I think in a million years would it turn out to be exactly where it is now. it was just one of those things where word of mouth traveled so well for us in the Boston area. And I also, have the brotherhood of not just the veteran community, but the police, fire, and all the municipal workers. We're really Boston's blue collar oil company. So word of mouth went very well for us.
I like that. I like that. That's I like how you describe that.
Yeah, and I mean, my whole family is all blue collar,
right?
Yeah, public servants. So when I first started, I was going door to door, and I'd go into all the municipalities. So I give everybody that is in that arena a discount. So it was really natural for me to give that discount, but it's also the reason why we had so many people, pass our name out. So, our prices are always good, but it's really nice to incentivize, and take care of the people that serve our communities every day.
Nice. No, that's great.
It comes back full.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. Now, okay, you have the idea. And again, I read that you took out the SBA loan. You said banks wouldn't approve your your startup business.
Yeah, and it was just a terrible timing to jump into the oil game.
Yeah, I mean, 2007, the market was taking a tank.
Yeah, and that's when everybody was really, they thought we were crazy to do it. But we kind of already had almost a full year of planning, this out and how we're going to execute it, that we needed to be in business by fall of 2007. So we spent the whole summer scrapping together what we could. And, there was a lot of sacrifice there. So when we saw, I didn't know anything about the oil markets and how they were that unstable. I just knew the part of, I pick up the oil and I make it to someone's house that needs heating oil, make the delivery safely, and on to the next stop. So it was a real, hard introduction to the instability of the oil markets.
Do you believe, I know it's hard to say this, a lot of times people say, if I realized how much work this thing would have taken in the beginning, I might not have started.
I knew it was going to be a lot of work. And that's one thing, I never really considered myself a businessman, and, but I do know I can do one thing so good that, it's kind of led me to where I am today, is that I could just work hard. I could put my head down and just can push through it. And I take it as a challenge. So the harder the work is, the more I want to pursue that avenue to see what I can, to push through it and get to the other side.
Interesting. Okay. And I feel the same way. I saw something somewhere, I don't know if it was on your IG or the website, where you guys were offering summer internship programs.
Yes.
Okay. Did you yourself, growing up as a young man, attend a summer internship program?
I did not. I had applied for a few of them, and in the construction industry, you always had to know somebody to get you into, that company. So I'd always just, wherever I could work and get hired, that's where I fell. And usually it would be for, summer projects. I'd go find a mason or a roofer to be just a general laborer.
Oh, so you worked throughout the summers in school?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
that makes sense.
High school, I, always had a job landscaping, changing oil at Jiffy Lube. So I was always staying busy because I knew that's one thing I was good at, is working with my hands, not being a student in school. Right. So I do that after school. And then same thing, trying out college, I always had a good construction job to, make ends meet, but keep things going on my other end and paying for school. So the military had brought so many good things to me because I didn't want to be one of those people walking out of college in debt. Wanted to, take on some responsibility and learn some leadership skills, which that fulfilled completely, which put me on the path I am today. Is, everything is really hinged off my service in the military and just learning that structure and just implementing that on my day to day. So
I can tell you, man, you seem like a really, really humble guy. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's my whole family being public servants and veterans. It's one of those things that just kind of comes in our character, where and it's almost to a fault where nothing is ever good enough because you could always do a little bit more. You could always work a little bit harder. And my wife will always say that's my downfall, because even when I go home at night, the wheels are always turning. I'm on the computer. I'm looking for opportunities just to keep the company growing. And now I have, close to 50 employees, and they have families. So now it's really incentivizing to work even harder to make sure that we can sustain this operation and continue to grow, and, so they could have fruitful lives, working here as employees.
Sure. Great. That's wonderful. So you started off doing residential services.
Yep. We did residential heating oil delivery service for about 6 years before we branched off into any type of other commercial oil or propane deliveries.
Now, so 6 years, so now it takes you to around 2013. When did you do your first, or can you remember your first government contract? I know before we were talking about you started doing work with DLA. I know you've done some work with FEMA. When did you do your first government contract? Can you remember that?
I think that started right around 2000. Well, 2014, someone had mentioned, and the business was starting to grow, and we were, getting known locally. But again, we haven't traveled outside of that residential arena. So, my service area is north of Boston, and someone had mentioned, you should, you're a veteran, you should get certified. And I had no idea what any of that certification meant. I just thought, okay, I'm a veteran, and I could say I'm a veteran-owned business, but there's a certain process behind that. So I started at the Massachusetts level to get certified, which led me into, okay, if you're going to get certified on the state level, get certified on the national level through the federal side. So we did that, and that's when I really had to start pursuing, how I can make this work for us and what this can do for us. Because right away, I got a piece of paper, and that was it. I was certified, but it didn't change my business.
No, of course, right.
Whatsoever. And what a lot of people don't realize is we've been in business just over 12, 13 years. But, we had to get to a certain point and establish our worth before we could really take it to the next level. And taking it to the next level is pursuing those opportunities on the government end. You still got to bring that service. And then it's, oh, by the way, we're also a certified veteran-owned company.
I love that.
When I go to a lot of these conventions to just do a meet and greet, and my arena is very limited for small business opportunity, because, selling oil to the government usually goes to the big players that are very competitive. They have, the whole supply chain management down to, buying in such large quantities that a lot of small businesses can't compete against them to meet, the margins that they can work off of. So putting a face behind a lot of this stuff helped a lot. And just kind of tackling that avenue. And it was a lot of work just to even get one contract. And it was a little contract, but again, it was dipping my toes into something that turned out to be a lot bigger than I thought. So it was a little discouraging at first when I realized, I thought I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to have all these opportunities. And it was like, no, you actually got to get out there and work your butt off to now network and let people know who you are, but let them know what type of service you can bring them.
That's interesting that you mentioned that. Kind of, I didn't even solicit that answer, but that's a really great answer that I think a lot of small businesses oftentimes miss, is the fact that you have this piece of paper doesn't guarantee contracts. It doesn't translate into contracts. No one's going to come knocking on your door. You still have to put in all the hard work, all the effort. And that's for someone who had 6 years of past performance.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so at this point, you had financials, you had tax returns, you had history, you had a track record, all these things that you think like, hey, I'm here, I've arrived.
Exactly. Yeah. And the biggest thing is, as I'm learning this even more is, we have our own assets. We have our own oil trucks, and 9 times out of 10, it's myself and my guys coming to make your delivery. And that's no matter where it is in the country. So we've been kind of spreading our wings a little bit to give ourselves a better network and a longer reach so we can grow into other parts. But right now we saturate New England very well. We can self-perform everything we do up in this region and even the tri-state. So, there's a lot to be said for the companies that go out there and build it. And everything that these contracts are meant to do is to help a small business not only put their foot in the door, but getting that contract and actually building your business. Right. That's what it's meant to do. It's not meant to have these guys sitting behind a computer subbing out all this work while it's only them. Like I've hired since taking on government contracts, 25 new positions.
Wow.
Brand spanking new positions. So that's what these programs are really
for. That's what it is to do.
Develop your company, build it. We purchased an old oil terminal, reactivated an old railroad switch, and that's bringing in more jobs. So what started off as very small at the time, I only had, I think, 10 employees. And, just through natural organic growth in the Boston area, being seen doing some bigger deliveries and whatnot, people see that as being, a good, well-developed company. So they more opt to do business with you versus,
now you have a foundation.
Yeah. So it did everything that, they're designed to do.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now tell us about, like you said, turning on the Squish to a facility that was vacant that you took over.
Yeah, that took place.
I read about it, but since you put it out there, we'll go ahead and jump right to it.
This was actually the perfect storm of opportunities that came up. And, a few things hinged off this being successful. But like with every business move, there's massive risk behind it. I take great pride in, growing my company, and I've always bought old oil trucks and fixed them up. And, even the storage tanks that we have at our facility are used that I'd go find. So, I'm really building this thing from a ground up. And me and my wife took a risk on buying this old oil terminal, had a little bit of storage, and it had 2 buildings for us to, hopefully grow into. At the time, 2017. So we made that move in June, and this was my real first big performance that I did for the government and FEMA when the hurricanes rolled through, and it's Hurricane Harvey and Irma. Mm-hmm. We got called by the Prime Contractor for these bids. Okay. They called us to assist, and so when you're reaching up to the New England area for assistance,
that's what I was thinking. I mean, that's a long ways away.
That's a reach. So it was one of these things. I had networked with a company down at a convention that I didn't realize was the FEMA Prime Contractor for this stuff. We kicked it off well, and again, it was mostly just, hey, I'm Bob Brown, and I met one of their operating managers, and we hit it off. I said, if you ever need anything, and usually, that means like, hey, thanks, I appreciate it, and you never see that person again. Yeah. Well, that guy took my number, and he needed something, and I told him I'd be there if you needed me. And he knew my background of being a firefighter and a veteran. So he asked me, he's like, could you come down here and bring us diesel fuel and gasoline full from Massachusetts and drive down there? I said, absolutely, whatever you need. So I got the guys rolling. We were able to deploy within 24 hours of the phone call. So we sent a convoy of trucks down, mm-hmm. and they ended up staying down there for about a month, all the way down into Florida Keys, where
you went all the way to the Keys.
Yeah. My
guys. Get out of here.
Yeah, we were stationed all over, mostly Florida at that point, because then Irma was the secondary wave that kind of depleted everybody that was serving Texas. Mm-hmm. So we had a stronghold there, and my guys were sleeping on top of their oil trucks. We were eating MREs. It was just like being in the military. So it was a good first performance. Right. And at the time, I had submitted a bid for the DoD contracts up in COG 2 region. So those results weren't out yet, and I was only assuming they say, hey, put your number on this and, you'll be lucky if you get a couple of them. So that's what we did. I put my number on a bunch of stuff and I was expecting to get, one or two sites, and there's many line items. So, somewhere up to 600. So it's plenty to go around, so to say. Yeah, that's what I did. But kind of being down there and performing under that FEMA umbrella and working for a prime contractor, which is good for a lot of companies that are small that just get newly certified, is not to bid on something direct. If you team up with a prime contractor, that's where, you're going to start growing, and, they are able to fulfill a supplier diversity quota if they use you in certain contracts.
Right.
And you're able to get a taste of what this stuff is all about.
Without all the risk.
Yeah, exactly. So, that
I always remind people that they think everyone assumes getting a prime contract is the best thing in the world, but you get all of the risk of a prime contract.
Yeah, which is a lot of risk, because when we sent our guys down, I knew, I didn't ask them how much money it was going to be to serve it. It's that natural of an instinct. If we get a call for service, that is the last thing on my mind. And to a fault, what I said, it's like, I'm really not a good businessman, because if someone needs help, I'm going to get them help. And it's, it's kind of growing our business like that. It's worked because people, realize they're dealing with a good company that wants to do the right thing.
No, you're an upstanding person. Right.
And I truly believe if you could pay something forward like that, do a good deed, you're going to get reimbursement, whether it's more customers. And that's a lot of things I've done have been for free, especially around the Boston area, in pinches, or someone say, oh, you only charge that, you didn't make any money. It's like, that's okay, because I'm building a name, and so building a name off just doing the right thing has been very good for us, because people know exactly what type of company they're dealing with.
Wow. So again, now you're working at FEMA, you submitted some bids for DOD, and then what happened?
So my guys come back, and probably less than 30 days later.
Wait, let me ask you something. So, okay, you take a bunch of fuel down there. Is the trucks, why did they stay for a month?
Because they were serving, when the power got hit to the certain regions that we were serving, the power companies were so far behind that it would take 2 weeks to get to an area to reestablish their regular power source. So we were fueling generators that were running. And a lot of the facilities we were at were hospitals or base camps where emergency shelters were,
So you just stayed there just to keep fueling the generator? Yeah.
So that's what we just kept these post camps and hospitals
going.
Being fueled. And a lot of the hospitals, they had patients in there that were on oxygen or ventilators. So we were keeping that going, and those need to be fueled every 4 to 5 hours because they're small capacity.
That's kind of what I was wondering. That's what I was looking at. They're small capacities.
Yeah. So it's when someone looks at that, they're like, oh, that's a little delivery. They don't realize it's like, no, you need a dedicated asset just to serve that, because that's we call them priority one facilities in our world, that, whether it's a hospital or anything serving in a natural disaster and emergency, most of the time we'll run off a generator when you're in the heart of that zone. Okay. So people always forget about the diesel fuel, and we're behind the scenes, but that's all the stuff that keeps the mission going.
Right. Yeah.
That's the mission.
Okay. So now what happens with the DoD contracts that you bid?
So 30 days later, I get an award notification. So I'm opening it up. I'm thinking, oh, I got a couple sites, and kind of not knowing everything about the process of being really a new vendor to holding a prime contract. I'm guessing they were going to do some sort of in-depth interview process, this and that. But, we had dipped our toes in enough when we had worked with a big prime contractor. And again, not having like a strategic map to say, okay, this is how we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to, establish, some sort of rating to, prove our worth that we can, serve these sites. We were able to use our references of who we worked for.
Right.
Which was huge in that case because the people that we work for have incredible ratings that serve all the disaster sites. So I kind of almost passed out when I looked at the line items that we had won to a point where I got a little scared because now I said, oh my God, it really was nerve-wracking because again, it's like, okay, being a prime contractor is kind of good.
Right.
But when you see all these things you got to fulfill, now you work, oh my God, is this too much? But again,
how do I do all this stuff? Right.
Yeah, so it was one of the, and I scrambled, and like with anything, and the veterans know this the best, that, you adapt and overcome. So everything I've done with the company, and that one being, the biggest milestone is, hey, we'll get the job done no matter what. So what I did was I, acted quick, and I bought some tractor trailers, which I never did tractor trailer work before. It was a very new addition to the business, but it worked out very well because having those sites and people seeing me run bulk deliveries now opened up the doors for me to go get my private customers to go buy bulk deliveries. So all these sites, even though they're not huge money makers by any means, you have to be competitive to get these bids, enabled us to really, okay, we're going to grow in this area. Now we're going to grow in this area. So it helped out tremendously for us to now take a 20-mile radius around Boston and expand that to go, all over New England and New York and New Jersey.
So you're in New York and New Jersey now?
Yes. Yeah. And, we make the runs down there with the trailers. The 6-wheeler oil trucks, we try not to go down if we don't have to. So, it has to be a larger drop, like with any commercial project. You can't be doing someone's bathroom, you have
right.
ability to make it worth it. So yeah, it's been good for us to expand our footprint. And again, with that contract at that time, when getting notified we were awarded that, we were able to hire 5 people kind of right off the bat, brand new positions.
Nice.
And those 5 turned into, at this point, 20 new positions. So 25 new hires off one contract award.
Wow. Was that a multiple year award contract?
Yes. Yeah. It was a 5-year award.
5 year. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
nice.
when I was going through the certification process in the very beginning, when someone's like, you should take a look at it. And it was discouraging because I'm like, oh, they just had already done everything for oil and propane for that year. So, I kind of put it on the back burner for a year, and then I'm like, you know what, I got to try to get certified just to, participate in the next round. Cause unfortunately 5 years comes quick. So
right.
you can kick something down the road far enough that you'd miss another round of it.
Oh, so you knew about it the previous 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But when I did get certified,
you weren't ready at the time.
I really wasn't, because I was still growing into my residential areas, getting those saturated. But I did get certified with Massachusetts.
Right.
And when Steve Wynn came with the casino project, a friend of mine had sent out an email, which I had almost missed, that, hey, he's trying to, get a 10% participation with small veteran-owned businesses.
Nice.
So that was the commercial arena in Boston was an area that I always stayed away from, because it didn't matter how cheap you were with your prices.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to make sure your performance was there. But as much as I could try, I was a new guy to the oil industry, have a new company. So they weren't really willing to give me a shot at the commercial project in Boston. So throwing my hat in the ring for the Wynn Casino and getting one company to sign up with us, Treviikos, which is a slurry wall company. They do all the pilings and footings for the site work.
Hold on, is it a blue and white sign, Treviikos?
Yes. Yep.
It's interesting. They're down here working.
Oh yeah,
they're huge.
They're huge. I didn't realize how big they were.
They're here working at Lake Okeechobee, my backyard. I think they've got $100 million worth of work right in my backyard.
Yeah, and that's not their biggest area of work. It's mostly in Europe. I think they're an Italian-based company, so they're
Oh.
international. We go all over the place.
Yeah, because I was like, when you said that name, Treviacos, I'm like, I was just imagining the spelling, Trevicos, and I was like, okay, they're blue and white.
Yep. So they were my very first commercial customer, and we still serve them to this day. And I'm so grateful for the people that had tried us out and weren't afraid to give it a shot. Not really to myself, I don't think it's a risk because I know what I bring for service, but to someone else that's been in the construction industry for years and years, they only rely on a few guys, and they usually don't go outside of that box.
No, because again, their name is on the line, right? Their reputation's on the line.
Yeah, but when these projects are incentivized, you realize that there's a lot of good companies that are starting out. And whether it's a small woman-owned company, a minority-owned company,
right.
Like, hey, when there's a little bit of incentive, you don't realize you find a lot of diamond in the rough. And that's what programs are designed for. It's, hey, give these guys a shot. Let them, take a crack at this commercial stuff. And most of the time, you're not going to, you won't be displeased with the performance.
No, I agree with you. I think that's helpful, like you said, and that's kind of what the programs are designed for, right? It's so that the established people will give some of the newcomers a chance.
Yep, exactly. And it's nice to see these companies grow because they are doing everything that these programs are designed to do.
Yeah. No, I agree.
We have a lot of incentives in the construction industry, to make sure, hey, you get a woman-owned company doing the trucking and get a woman minority-owned supply construction material or PPE. It's good to have and that's a good way for them to start off slow and grow into that.
It's interesting. I don't think I've read any of my questions on my list.
Really?
We just been talking. Like I said, you're so easy to talk to. I don't think I've read any of my questions on my list. I did. That's funny, but that's great. I like that. I like when people can have a conversation and it's very natural, as opposed to like trying to script the whole interview format.
Exactly. Yeah, and I've done a few of these, and I'm like terrible when it's time to sit down because ask anybody that knows me, I can't sit down for 2 seconds.
Okay. Well, thank you for sitting down for this.
I'm usually trying to angle a way out of it, but this has been good because it's just natural flow.
And I appreciate that. A couple things in my family, my older siblings, they've always had foster kids, and a lot of them are not made for college, and a lot of them are good with their hands. And I think a lot of the small businesses out there, this is a great illustration of how someone who, like you said, you're great with your hands, you have a hard work ethic, can take and make it.
Yep.
And I like that. I like that example. That's why I asked the questions about the internships and working in the summers. These are all things that I did. That's why I'm not afraid of working around the clock, because it doesn't feel like work. It's just an extension of me.
Exactly. And there's something to say about, again, in this day and age where everything's behind a computer or an email,
right?
There's something to say about bringing a personal touch back to business, which I think a lot of companies got away from with the ease of electronics and email. You can really distance yourself from, a personal interaction. But I think companies are putting themselves at risk of losing business because I think people miss that.
Well, I think that that's what we forgot when we let our manufacturing go away, right? That there's a lot of kids and a lot of people out here that want to be not necessarily behind a computer, not necessarily behind a terminal, right? They want to be in there touching and feeling stuff with their hands. Yeah,
and that's, we opened up that summer internship that we were talking about with the railroad. We reactivated, and it's nice because we're bringing in oil and biodiesel, and we're going to be bringing in propane. We're bringing in steel for a local construction company, and I bought a crane to transload that stuff. So I started expanding off just the needs of other people in the area, and that's just, again, it was a handshake deal with a steel guy, but he needed steel delivered here, and it was heavy deliveries through a certain few months that I said, okay, you know what, handshake deal that I probably should have got a contract signed, but I made a handshake because I trusted him.
Right.
And it worked out. We continue to do business, and
That's amazing.
I said that's what I like about what I do is that, besides the contracts and stuff, a lot, is said with a handshake in doing business face to face.
I've always said, because a lot of people ask me, Eric, do I need to get an NDA and a confidentiality agreement? And I go, listen, if someone's going to screw you, they're going to screw you.
Yeah.
I go, listen, all that stuff, that paperwork you sign, someone's going to take advantage of you. They're going to do it. They have bad intentions.
And that's the one thing as we grow, a lot of people that are, interviewing, and they're coming from bigger companies that make you sign all that stuff. And, I had asked a few things because I'm saying maybe I should be doing that. But then again, I'm like, you know what? I really, there's not really nothing to hide here. It's because they're going to realize that, oh, you just work hard. You treat people good. We don't do anything that's, somebody else isn't doing. And if not, we're doing it, in a different way. But I'm not really afraid to hide any of that information other than just our, internal policies and stuff like that. You hope people don't, share those things. Of
course. Right. How has the oil price or the barrel gone down? How does that impact you?
It really hasn't luckily impacted me.
I mean, again, I don't know about your business, so I just know we see the oil shares go up, they go down.
Yeah. So, and everybody has the same question. I'm the end user before it actually hits the customer. So the big oil guys definitely got impacted by that. And I was able to grow my company off limiting all exposure as in 2007, 2008, when oil prices went up to, $4 a gallon, and then it came crashing down. So I was COD. So I didn't invest.
You didn't have it. You weren't holding oil.
Yeah. And I'm really not a gambling type of guy. I like to know what I can do and fulfill it with a guarantee. So I don't, gamble on futures and this and that. And I've actually reaped the benefit of growing my company and having other companies buy each other out through different shortfalls that they would make, some through, buying futures and losing out on it. And, one bad season, unfortunately, with the oil industry, could set up your fate for going out of business. So I've kept limited risk on everything we do here. So I had no exposure when that market crashed. Having the rail spur, we kind of still do things on a week-to-week basis. But I was actually to take advantage of the low prices with our storage.
Wow.
So having, rail cars and a terminal to store things, it was nice because not on a massive level, but, the breadcrumbs, they all add up to something. So that's what we did. And we were able to provide our customers an opportunity to lock in at a low price for this heating oil season. So, as much as we benefited, I always open that up to the customers to take advantage.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So a lot of people took advantage of that. And at the time when we had first scheduled our first Zoom teleconference here, I unfortunately ended up getting sick from COVID. So,
is that what happened?
Yeah,
Maria probably knew about it, but I didn't know.
I told the office, I said, make sure you reach out because I got to cancel. So I ended up getting sick for a couple of weeks.
You had C19.
Chelsea was the hot spot for Massachusetts, and being first responder, this is right before the mask ordinance went out, and people were really, taking this as serious,
right,
from the get-go. So just being close quarters and going into a lot of the multifamilies, not necessarily for medical calls, but even for fire calls, investigations. Me and a few other guys that I work with ended up getting sick from it. So that took me out for a good 3 weeks. And mostly, the 3 weeks was because they didn't want me in contact with anybody else naturally.
Right.
But I was sick for a good week on that.
Right. Did it impact your business itself in any other way? Not from you being out, but what about the COVID?
So, our Boston site drivers were the ones that were affected because we have, a good half a dozen guys that would serve Boston just with all the construction sites. So but we actually ended up getting a reassignment. So I was able to keep my whole staff going. And we had to hire a couple terminal guys, fortunately, because, all the work that was coming in and we were doing so much rail at the time that we needed people here at the terminal while our extra drivers that we had were out fueling these COVID testing sites. So they popped up all these testing sites with the generators that needed to run 24/7. So, we were assigned to all those generators in the state. And, similar to a small deployment for like a hurricane, we just had guys dedicated.
All day, going back and forth for the generator.
Yeah, so it went from, okay, we're not going to do this, but now we have this emergency at stake. And now, I'm, of course, sick, so I can't even leave my house. So everybody kind of had to take a step up in the chain of command. And, they assumed it great. And I was kind of like, oh, you guys got this, right? I'll just stay on my phone and just talk to you.
So how did you know what to do at a terminal?
Again?
How did you know what to do with a terminal that you were buying?
I didn't. I honestly, I didn't. I knew that the infrastructure was good and it had a small rack. So I said, okay, this is good. But there was a little hidden gem that the previous owner didn't assess at the time of the sale, which worked to my benefit. Because again, it was such a large risk for me and my wife to even step into this place. And they had it sourced out to some bigger oil companies. And when someone mentioned, hey, you should go talk to the owner, her husband had passed away. He came down with cancer and died fairly quickly. So when I came in here, I really, again, with the personal relationships and who we are, I ended up, kind of hitting it off. I loved the property, and she basically selected us as the ones to carry on the facility name, because it was 100-year-old company that not necessarily for oil, but they were bringing in charcoal back in the day. So it was great-grandfather was bringing in charcoal, and they were bringing in all sorts of other stuff. But then the rails started getting taken out of it, and there was one rail line left, but it was overgrown. And there was now woods were kind of growing over it, and a small little brook that was a man-made brook for drainage from the railroad. But, it was wet enough to be considered a wetland if we wanted to use it. So when I took a look at that and watching all the freight go by us, that's when the light bulb went off, and I said, I got to inquire about what I could bring in here. So the first obstacle was how are you going to get to the rail line?
Right.
We met with the railroad, and we were, able to come up with a plan to clear some area, just enough to get to that rail siding and start bringing in some business, which was the steel at first. And just the steel wasn't a moneymaker, but what I wanted to do was develop, some activity back into the region again, let the railroad get used to serving the site. So again, not being a real businessman, because if you looked at it at the time, someone would say, you're not making any money doing that. And I knew I wasn't making any money doing that. But the thing was, I was bringing activity back to a 50-year-old dormant rail siding. Right. And that was the biggest thing I needed to do, is bring back, some traffic here. Then I started sourcing out who could I get to bring in oil or biodiesel, and finding a good partner from a refinery that produces it is the ones that you got to go to source that stuff. And we were able to show them, hey, we got a siding, send up the oil. But and I say this, because everything's okay now. But if anybody were to see how I was getting that stuff off the rail tanker, might have second guessed it. Right. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you need to have fixed this and a pump here and a pump here. And it's like, I'm not, I don't have a lot of capital. I just dumped all my capital that I had in places. But with the CB attitude, can do, which is, kind of our logo is, and our motto is with the B and be warm, but it really stands for can do, which means there's nothing we can't do. And that's everything, we'll act first, we'll get the job done, then we'll worry about everything else later. So I was making transfers just to show them that, hey, we can transfer off the rail. And over time, as I bring in more rail cars, I can start, getting some money to put these necessary things in place.
Right.
I mean, being a fireman, we do everything safely and I took that as, okay, it's not too far off from transferring water from an engine to a hydrant and a hydrant to another engine. So I looked at that as, hey, we could do this the same way. We can transfer from a rail car through a truck pump and into our storage farm. So we did that, and a lot of people that see the site now, and then I show them pictures of how we used to do it. It said, hey, you got to improvise and overcome. That's what we did.
Wow. No, that's incredible. Go ahead.
Clearing, we end up, with the first couple rail cars, we ended up getting approval from the city when they saw all the business we were going to be bringing in, and they allowed us to delineate the wetland, the brook, completely off our property. So we exposed this whole, 1,500-foot rail siding along our property, which was all woods. Everything was overgrown. So, a small area that we could work off of turned into, a whole wide area that we were able to clear, delineate, and now we're putting in pipes, pumps, and all sorts of, and we actually just built a second rail siding alongside that other one. So we have 2 tracks.
I saw the pictures. I saw one of your YouTube videos, and it looks really, really cool.
Yeah. It's interesting because you don't see a lot of companies utilizing it in this area, but I think it's going to start coming back. It's a safer mode of transport. It's taking congestion off the highways, and especially with hazards, it's actually safer to take it in off the rail than it is the highway, because there's a lot of things not up, even the driver can control. It's other people in, traveling out of state.
And you're bringing oil in from Canada?
Yeah, some of it's Canada, Midwest, and some products would even come out of Texas. So as far as Texas, so we're kind of sourcing from all areas.
How much storage capacity do you have now?
So we have 250,000 gallons of fixed storage, which is actually on the property into tanks, and then we have 600,000 gallons of what I call rolling storage, is what the rail cars can sit in. So, yeah, we're right up there to 850,000 gallons roughly of this terminal's capacity.
And that very first tank that you fixed up, what was that capacity?
10,000 gallons. Yeah, it was, and we cherry picked all these used tanks, various sizes. Yeah. If you ever come to the site, you'll notice that there's really no flow to it. It's just what's available and what can we afford. And in time, I'm hoping to replace it with newer stuff, but
it's working.
With the any startup would appreciate it. It's just you get what you can get, for the amount of money you have, and eventually you'll grow into that, and then you'll look back and you say, I can't believe we used to run out of that, or
yeah.
We have this as a storage tank, and it's kind of when people ask me like, how did you get to where you are now, and where are you going to go with it? I say, I have no idea where we're going to go, because I, again, just keep my head down and just keep working. And I said,
right.
And then when you lift your head up and you realize, okay, we've gone this far. But yeah, it's one of those things where we're never really satisfied with where we are. So again, I just keep pushing along. And the day that anybody, looks up and says, oh, okay, this is good, that's usually the day that you've stopped growing, because you should really never be satisfied with where you're at.
Where did you learn all these principles?
I think it's.
You are spilling off like stuff out of books, and I take it you don't read books.
Not really, no.
Exactly. I'm just assuming.
No, it's just it's always been a passion of mine. But again, just growing a business and just grinding it out, you become very humble, and that's when you look around. And I love helping other people, and I tell everybody that is like me or a veteran. Usually a lot of the veterans are the ones that didn't go to college because they like to work with their hands, and they're, former athletes that just like doing physical things and working, and had, some sort of camaraderie with the team. So it was a good fit for them. And coming out, now you're a loner, but again, you're a good worker. You can form your own team and build it that way. And when you see all these things you could do with just keeping your head down, and with my guys, nobody has the boss attitude here. Not even myself. I'll do whatever the lowest guy on the totem pole would be doing, which would be sweeping, taking out trash. And that's how I like to raise the team is you're not good enough. Nobody's ever good enough to do a certain task here because we'll all get our hands dirty.
Now, I read that your wife can drive the crane.
Oh, yeah.
She's a hydraulics certification or something?
Yeah, and that when my wife was in the office, and as we're growing, a lot of the guys coming into the office, and she'd give an order when I'm out at the station. In some male-dominant industry, it would be like, well, she doesn't know what it's like being out here, and I didn't want them to ever have that as ammunition, and neither did she, because I know what she's capable of. And she's like, I'm going to deliver oil. I'm like, I don't need you delivering oil. I need you in the office.
Right.
But then a small part of me said, you know what? This will be good because as we grow, they're only going to respect us more, especially if you could do what everybody else can. So, we try to keep the workforce diverse, and I, hire women to be our operations manager, or, take on, what would be considered a male dominant job responsibility, because I know my wife can do anything that these terminal guys can do, spin a wrench, do this. So it's nice because it also shows that, hey, we're not a company that will ever discriminate against anything. I give everybody a chance, because if you saw me as a young guy going into the military, you probably wouldn't trust me with a lot. But, having a good work ethic and just being able to get the job done can serve its role here at Broco Oil indefinitely. I don't need someone to have a college degree. I'd rather have, hey, I'm going to work my butt off for you, versus I graduated with a master's degree from this. You know what I mean?
No, I understand what you mean. I understand. No, you want, obviously, for the short time and talking to you and getting to know your personality, I can see that. You want someone that has a down-to-earth attitude that's going to come, show up every day on time, do his job, and go over and above, and know that he's going to be taken care of.
Yeah, and to have someone that's going to jive with the team, because if I can't have any individuals here, and as much as it is an individual job to go deliver to this site, what makes us shine is when we go to these emergencies, we form together, and guys that are behind on a certain task, are backfilled by all these other guys that got done with their day early. So I try not to hire based off just performance. The personality needs to be right, and they have to be willing to work in a team environment. And, just nobody, seniority is, we have seniority at our, at Broco Oil, but we don't hold it up to a point where it's, dangling it over the younger guys' heads. We're trying to have everybody grow into the same role, but keep it on an even playing field.
Have you had a hard time finding younger people that want to work? People talk about the millennials, and the millennials don't want to work anymore. What's been your experience?
It's tough to get these guys that are, again, everything's driven by the phone, and you can find everything, all the information from the phone. And a lot of times all the work that we have is, hey, the phone is a distraction. I need your hands and your eyes focusing on what you're doing. So, having someone come in here at, from high school, again, not all are bad, but it's been a little bit of a challenge. But you just have to, every situational leadership, you have to, take each person and kind of see what motivates them. And you have to, that's the one thing I'd say the biggest challenge is just you're leading by individual. You're not leading by an actual group. Mm-hmm. Everybody's different, and you have to motivate them in certain ways. But in general, great workers, you got to find that motivation for those guys and girls. Nice. And give them tasks, and comes down to my management team. I'm like, guys, take it as kind of a challenge. Like, how are you going to motivate them? And you give them, straight directives. Hey, I want you to do this, and after you do that, you got to have another task lined up, and they'll get it all done. And sometimes they'll get it done so freaking quick that you realize, that they're a great worker. You just have to set those expectations. So, but it's been difficult because that generation will demand certain respect, and from my generation and coming up under my father, it's more or less like you got to earn that, and you don't really have a say into anything until you've earned that. So you just got to realize that it's things aren't the way they used to be, and you have to have an open mind on how to continue to form these people into who you want them to be.
What made you set up an Instagram page?
I stayed away from social media for so long to a fault. So I didn't have any presence whatsoever for our first 5 years. In the first presence, my wife started our Facebook page. And then I realized, I'm like, okay, I got to get into this, because I was never the type to, take a picture like, oh, look at me, I'm over here doing this.
Right.
So, but it is a necessary evil for me. So I run our Instagram page. I don't run our Facebook. I actually have a girl, my wife's a friend of ours that my wife works directly with. So they develop content, and then I'll do the LinkedIn as well. So
you do the Instagram page.
Yeah, and that's because she was always wanting to set up meetings every week to say, get me pictures, and I can't even dictate what my next day is going to be, let alone what next week is, because I came out of the fire station this morning, and I was in meetings all day, and now I'm talking to you, and it's like the day it's over in a second, and then tomorrow I'm back in the firehouse. Mm-hmm. So that's another day that I lose, and then I'm always catching up on my weeks, which kind of stinks, but it's I love being a fireman, so that's why everybody asks me why I don't leave. It's like, what if you love what you do? Why would you leave? It's not a hassle. Right. I don't mind working 100 hours a week. I've done it forever. So the nights I don't get any sleep where I'm hurting.
Yeah.
But the Instagram was a good way for me to express myself on real time when I'm out there working in the truck. And then what my social media girl would do is that's good. I'm going to take that and use that for a Facebook post. Mm-hmm. So that was a way for me to interact with her. And it actually turned out into something like, actually, you know what this is? I like doing this. And I've developed a lot of good networking opportunities just by, hey, and it's not
just showing what you're doing.
It's not ever gloating about it's just, we're over here and this is what we're doing. And it's for people to see that and say, oh, these guys do marine work. Not a lot of people knew we did marine deliveries.
Right.
I started posting that, and we've gotten customers out of it, and somewhere where you at least expected that you have a few followers that know a guy that, it goes right down the line. And before you know it, you're getting a phone call because of a post that you did. And it's as easy as you're working somewhere, take a quick picture or a video. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing I got to open up to. I got to start doing videos, which...
I'm the same way. I'm like you. I'm 41. How old are you?
37.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm the same. I was never a picture poster, take a picture of my food kind of guy. Believe it or not, this is actually, it's easier for me now, but it was harder for me in the beginning doing even the video stuff.
Yeah.
But I had to force myself to do it, really, more than anything else. And doing the videos, doing the content. Today, I have over 11,000 subscribers. I get 30,000 views a month on YouTube. Wow. And that's how I actually ended up working in your area. Because someone saw me on there, and they said, hey, I like your videos. I like what you're talking about. Can we have you to come work with us? And I go, no, I don't really do that. And they said, listen, look, what is it going to take and what is it going to cost? And that's, like you said, you picked up some clients from that. And that's what I found. And today, I get every week someone reaches out to me with some incredible opportunity that, like yourself, I'm almost blown away at what people want to partner with me about or for. Now it's like IT. People want to take me to the IT world. And they have this new technology that they want to bring to the government. And they're like, hey, can you help me do it? and I have no idea about the technology or anything. And they're like, we want to be a partner. And it happens every week.
Yeah, but there's a thing, if you know how to get to that point, and it's a tough area to navigate through.
Right.
I still got to get in there and, okay, where are we at? And it's a process. And me, I'm always moving. I love to work. I hate to sit back and do research, but I do it, and it's a necessary evil. But having a good partner that, could bring, that type of value to the table, which obviously, you bring a lot of good value.
Right.
And I could see it. It's mostly personality driven, and you're not afraid of work. And you're the type of guy that I'd want on my team. I'll tell you that.
Yes.
A guy that would say, I can get you, get you a bid, and I'll win this. Like, I don't need that guy. I want the guy that's going to be, getting us repeat business by loving to do business with us.
Yeah.
And you can put personality there.
No, and that's true. And that's what we're working on. We're going to be established in Groton and Newport.
Nice.
And we'll be in Portsmouth.
I'm right down the street.
We'll be in Portsmouth. We'll be there. We'll be there soon. Well, again, from the Newburyport, we're 35 minutes, right?
So, it's a quick blast.
Yeah.
If you guys are ever in the area, you should come down to Haverhill.
I'm going to come down to Haverhill and visit when I come back up there. Before this COVID, I was flying up there every 2 months.
Okay.
But because of COVID and the flight stuff, I haven't been up there. But if it wasn't for COVID, I was up there because, like I said, we just finished like a 18-month project in Lowell, and so I just finished Lowell. I'm helping some other people that are, I think she's from Haverhill, but she's in Boston now. Another small business that's getting started, a woman-owned service-disabled company. I think she's from Haverhill. But like I said, we're working at Hanscom. We're working all around you.
All right.
Working all around you. But definitely we could talk because, we're at Newport. And we're going to have a 5-year contract there and a 5-year at Groton.
Oh, nice. And, it's one of those things, it's good networking because now when I'm at an opportunity and I see something, it's, hey, let me reach out to someone.
Right.
And some guys like, I had no idea that was going out. And, it's a good network to have, and you guys pass each other's names along and, that's the way.
Listen, trust me. I actually texted him before we jumped on the call about, hey, one thing that I will say is you remind me of like someone like a Gary Vee who doesn't read books, but just through like sheer business and fortitude and being out there working, you picked up a lot of the same vocabulary that people would accumulate in a book.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've watched Gary Vee a few times on my Instagram, and I like him. He's pretty rogue with his comments and just his opinions. And he's pretty right. It's a lot of it's just a certain mentality. If you're a hard worker, a lot can be done, and you can't worry about what is on the sidelines.
He says you have to be in the dirt or in the clouds. You can't be in between. It's like you got to be in the dirt or you got to be up there in the clouds. I
know, and usually I'm like so far in the dirt I can't even pull my head up. I'm working so hard. So, and if we have a next segment, if you give me permission, I could definitely throw in some swear words because Gary kind of breaks it up like that, and that's why I like to listen to him because he.
No, I agree. I think absolutely. I want people to be who they are, and I've had I had a FEMA guy on here, and he was like, FEMA was full of it, and he said, and he was just saying in terms of a lot of people, I will say, try to teach you government contracting like review a rule book, right? Yeah. And that's what he was saying. It's like, look, there's no rule book here. Okay, you read this and they're supposed to do this and they're supposed to do that. And he says, we don't do that.
I know. It's and which keeps people away from it a lot. But if you are willing and you're already a risk taker being a startup small business, take the risk. You could only gain from it if you are like any of us, climbing and clawing our way to, grow the business. You'll figure out a way to make it work.
I think I'm going to introduce you to some people when we get off because we looked at a demo job at Portsmouth and part of it had to be tied to the rail cars to haul off a radioactive building. And there was only 2 people that showed up to the bid. And
Come on.
I'm serious.
Oh, I'd show up to that all day long.
Let me tell you, it was 2 people showed up, and one of them was the Manafort group. You know them.
Okay. Yep.
They were up there. And we have an office up in New Hampshire. And the other company was Select Demo.
Yep. Yep. Very familiar with them.
I mean, I'm telling you, listen, I'm in your area. I actually know more about you guys than I know about Florida right now.
All right.
Because I'm, we're probably, negotiating like 10, 12 million worth of work up there. So,
okay.
Yeah, man, I'm very, very active in your area, man. I'm very, very active in your area.
We can talk because I got other business avenues I'm pursuing with the property in Haverhill, and some of it has to do with disposal. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I will, if you send Maria an email, I'll send you the one for the coursework that I looked at. It's gone now, but it's maybe you could get a piece of the action because part of it, they did have to do like veterans, women-owned, set aside as part of the requirements. And we didn't bid it, and there was only 2 people that showed up. So the other company had to get the contract if it was awarded.
I was going to say, because I think I was looking at that one. Was that a few months ago?
It was last year, late last year.
Late last year. And I had thrown in some numbers for heating, for oil, diesel, on-site fueling.
But this was, but I mean, why not the demolition to take the trans to haul it?
Oh my God. All right.
I if I'm not mistaken, I think it was, I have to look at it. It was like 3,000 rail cars.
Really?
Stuff. Some astronomical number. I mean, it was, I told the guy, I go, you're kidding. He goes, no. He says, this is a big site. It was at Portsmouth.
Wow.
I'm
going to go dig into that.
Just send me an email and I'll send it to you. I've got it. Matter of fact, you know what? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Listen, before we go, we're going to go offline. I'm going to show you this. But before we go, leave the listeners with something that they can take away from today's conversation.
Okay. I would just say, don't be afraid to try anything, everything. Work hard, keep your head down, and just keep taking risks and keep pursuing government contracts, state contracts. No matter how hard you think you're up against it, if you keep trying and throwing stuff at the wall, eventually something sticks. I can definitely be that example for you because we were throwing stuff at the wall to a point where, we were just going to stop because I thought it was a waste of time, and it ended up being, the best thing that ever happened to our company. So hang in there, keep working hard, and there's always an upside to everything after that.
Hey, Bob Brown, thank you so much. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Appreciate it.